Hey everyone, my name is Wedge, and this special edition deck tech is brought to you by PucaTrade. In this video, we're going to talk about Esper Control, a strategy that I think is flying under the radar a little bit recently. Also, as we go over each card, we'll show you how much each of them costs in PucaPoints. To learn more about PucaTrade and why it's one of the best trading communities ever, click this link. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Esper Control combines the removal and disruption heavy power of blue and black with the annoyance that is Elspeth and End Hostilities. That's the best way I can describe the strategy. The deck functions similarly to normal control decks. Disrupt and annoy in the early to mid game, then start dream crushing after that. I'll let the deck speak for itself. As always, we start with the mana base. Full playsets of Temple of Deceit, Temple of Enlightenment, and Temple of Silence shouldn't surprise anyone. Scrylands are great and everyone knows it. After that, we have 4 Polluted Delta, 2 Flooded Strand, and 1 Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. The land base finishes off with 2 plains, 2 islands, and 2 swamps. Just a quick note about Urborg. Some people run 2. I do not like that. Drawing a dead Urborg is the worst feeling in the world ever. With your 12 Scrylands and 6 fetch lands, you should be okay running 1 Urborg. Sometimes you get color starved, but I have yet to find a real issue with only running 1. The deck doesn't run any creatures. No Pearl Lake Ancients, no Prognostic Sphinx, not even Nyx's Fleece Ram, at least in the main deck. The version of Esper focuses way more on the spell package and is set up to fight against mid-range dominant metas. I had too many experiences where the Ancient and Sphinx just couldn't win the game. With that said, we'll begin with our Planeswalker package. 3 Elspeth Sun's Champion are in the deck as the primary win condition. After you take away all of your opponent's hopes and dreams, you drop Elspeth and get way too much value. Basically, Elspeth is in here to do Elspeth things, is what I'm saying. This is where controversy begins. There are 5 other Planeswalkers in this list. 3 Ashiok Nightmare Weaver and 2 Sorin Solemn Visitor. I know, you don't like Ashiok. You don't like Sorin in this build. Trust me, been there. Let me explain. Ashiok is one of the most polarizing cards in Standard right now. You either love it or hate it at this point. As you can probably guess, I like it more than most people. While Ashiok is high variance and can come out at the worst times, he is amazing early game against mid-range or aggro decks. If you drop him turn 3 and he isn't immediately answered, he can just run away with the game. It's happened time and again. Also, yeah, I get that we aren't running creatures, so a bunch of normally dead removal hits him, but I think he's still worth it. In the meta we're in right now, where value creatures are all over the place, being able to steal them seems pretty sweet to me, especially if your opponent can't answer. Next controversial walker, Sorin Solemn Visitor. Again, I know, I don't run any creatures. I get that, I promise. I like Sorin in this deck for his -2 and then his +1, either on his own vampires or a bunch of Elspeth tokens mid to late game. A lot of players ignore him in control strategies, but against the mirror and a decent amount of mid-range decks, he performs really well, much better than you'd think. Creating 2/2 flyers is definitely a thing, even if it takes half his loyalty. Like Ashiok, if he isn't destroyed right away, you get some serious value. Plus, Sorin -2ing onto an empty board seems strong. Doubt they have removal to take care of both him and the vampire you create. Control decks have always loved cards that provide creature reserves. Esper's no different. Before we move on to spells, I'd once again like to reinforce that the deck strays away from the norm a bit, but it's designed to fight a specific type of environment. Ashiok and Sorin fit into this version of the strategy. If you're interested in their inclusion or flat out disagree, test with it and see how it goes. I know I was pleasantly surprised. Man, there's a lot of public service announcements in this video. Let's move on to spells. Nothing here should surprise you. We have the standard blue-white control package of 4 End Hostilities, 4 Dig Through Time, 4 Dissolve, and 3 Nullify. End Hostilities because creatures are bad and we don't like them. Dig Through Time because I've heard looking 7 cards deep usually yields results. Who knows, am I right? 4 Dissolve because you're a control deck, and 3 Nullify because we are really trying to not let Manus Rider hit the table. Same with Goblin Rabblemaster. I realize that Disdainful Stroke is a strong card, but it's in the sideboard because Nullify deals with the boogeymen of the format. As a control player, I'm much more afraid of a Goblin Rabblemaster and a Manus Rider than I am of a Wingmate Rock or another mid to late game Planeswalker. The last non-black spell in the deck is a single Banishing Light. Just a good all-around removal spell that's nice to have. It's pretty straightforward. On to black spells, we'll start with Disruption. 3 Thoughtseize and 2 Despise are our discard spells. Thoughtseize doesn't even need to be explained at this point. Despise has become relevant recently thanks to all the creature and planeswalker heavy strategies. Sarkhan, Siege Rhino, Eidolon of Blossoms, opposing Elspeth. The card is a powerhouse right now and there's no reason you shouldn't be running at least a couple. The rest of the 27 card spell package is made up of 4 Heroes Downfall and 2 Bile Blight. Best removal spell in the format, Heroes Downfall. Nothing else comes even remotely close. Bile Blight respects Fleecemane, Lion, Manus Rider, Goblin, Rabblemaster, and basically anything else too small to deserve an End Hostilities. So let's go over what we're doing here. We've got early game disruption in the form of Thoughtseize, Despise, and Nullify. This should help us get to our mid game that'll be filled with removal spells, sacrificing fetch lands, and using Dig Through Time for value. Whenever our opponent no longer feels like playing Magic, drop an Elspeth or Sorin and just win the game. If we can get an Ashiok down early game, skip all the steps I just told you. At that point, play Ashiok and protect him until you stomp like a boss. Sideboard time. I'll make this short and to the point. Against Jeskai Tempo, one of your worst matchups, you bring in Negate, Disdainful Stroke for Stoke the Flames and Karanos, and Nyx Fleece Ram to block some goblins. You can also include a one of Resolute Archangel, mainly because that card destroys Jeskai if you can bait them into trying to burn you out. If you have the room on board, another Bile Blight or even a couple Drown in Sorrow can stop them right in their tracks. Basically what I'm saying is that if you choose to, you can make a sideboard dedicated to destroying Jeskai after game 1. Against that deck, try not to keep late game hands. You don't want to see Elspeth or even Dig Through Time in your opener. You have to react to what they're doing all the time. Eidolon of Blossoms decks are coming back. Sideboarding a couple Deicide and Utter End will do wonders against Whip of Erebos and Pharika, as well as, the rest of their entire strategy. Ashiok also works really well here since Enchantments is a bit slower than other decks. Obzan mid-range. Disdainful Stroke is a boss. So is Liliana Vess. Even though she's in my sideboard for the control matchups, she performs just fine against Obzan. Making them discard anything from their deck is good since the whole thing is filled with value cards. If you want to get cheeky, run a few Perilous Vault against them. Pretty good in the matchup, but not exactly what we want for the main deck. You could also bring in Negate, but I'm on the fence about that one. It does mess with their disruption, removal, and planeswalkers, but I feel like you have more important things to do. Up to you though. Against most other control strategies, Liliana Vess is amazing, as are Negate and Disdainful Stroke. Pretty self-explanatory here as well. Depending on the variation, you can take out as much removal as you need to. Sorin performs amazingly here, while Ashiok is pretty much the worst, so keep that in mind. This list is definitely one of the more complicated ones we've talked about in a while, but that's what happens when a standard environment is healthy. You have to pick the decks you want to beat and the ones you want to be weak to. It's a rough life for a control player. Yeah. Anyways, the entire deck can be constructed on PucaTrade using this many points. If you send out cards regularly, you could get there in no time. Turn cards you don't need into ones you do. Seriously, go to PucaTrade. I never tell you to do anything. Just trust me, I'm trying to help. Let me know what you think about the deck in the comments, and if you have any questions, ask away, I'll be around. As always, subscribe for the latest and most reliable Magic the Gathering information you could ever need. This is the Mana Source, I'm Wedge, thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.